The low hum of quantum processors filled the observation deck as Dr. Samira Patel gazed through the reinforced viewport at humanity's greatest achievement. The Helios Accelerator stretched before her like an elaborate spider's web, its gleaming structures catching the dim light of Proxima Centauri. After 15 years of work, countless setbacks, and more sacrifices than she cared to count, they were finally ready. Primary systems check complete, Dr. Patel, announced Dr. Nikolai Volkov, his Russian accent slightly more pronounced under stress. Secondary containment fields are holding at optimal levels. Samira nodded, her dark eyes never leaving the massive structure. The accelerator's ring seemed to pulse with potential energy, each concentric circle larger than the last, all connected by a network of quantum tunneling bridges that defied conventional physics. This wasn't just another particle collider, it was humanity's first attempt to pierce the quantum veil itself. Status report from engineering, called out Dr. Rashida Hassan from her station. Dr. Rodriguez confirms all power systems are green. We're drawing clean energy from the stellar tap at 97% efficiency. The stellar tap had been Thomas Rodriguez's breakthrough, a way to harness the endless energy of Proxima Centauri itself. Without it, the Helios project would have remained an impossible dream. Now it stood as testament to human ingenuity, floating in the space between worlds. Dr. Patel. Lieutenant James O'Connor's voice carried a note of concern. The military liaison had been against today's test, arguing they needed more time. The quantum containment readings are showing some unusual fluctuations. Nothing critical, but... Send the data to my terminal, Samira replied, finally turning from the window. Her workstation came alive with streams of quantum calculations, probability matrices dancing across multiple holographic displays. The fluctuations were indeed unusual, subtle patterns that shouldn't exist in truly random quantum events. It's like they're responding to something, murmured Dr. Hassan, who had moved to study the readings. Almost as if the quantum field itself is aware we're watching, Samira finished. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, though she kept her voice steady. Run a full diagnostic on the quantum sensors. We need to be certain these readings are accurate. As her team worked, Samira's mind drifted to the message that had started it all. 15 years ago, radio telescopes across Earth had detected an anomalous signal from Proxima Centauri. Not the simple patterns most scientists expected from first contact, but something far stranger, quantum fluctuations that seemed to encode mathematical concepts far beyond human understanding. It had taken 5 years just to decode a fraction of the signal. Another decade to design and build the tools needed to respond. The Helios Accelerator wasn't just a scientific instrument, it was humanity's first attempt to answer that ancient call. Diagnostic complete, Nikolai announced. All sensors are functioning within normal parameters. These patterns are real, Dr. Patel. Samira took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Begin primary sequence initialization. Let's see if anyone's listening. The observation deck erupted into controlled chaos as her team worked to bring the massive accelerator online. Power levels rose steadily as the stellar tap channeled the fury of a star into carefully controlled streams of energy. Quantum containment field strengthened, creating a space where the normal rules of physics could be safely bent. Primary sequence stable, called out Dr. Hassan. Particle injection in 30 seconds. Security teams report all stations secure, added O'Connor, though his posture remained tense. No unauthorized personnel within the safety perimeter. Samira moved to the central control station, her fingers hovering over the final authorization panel. Everything they knew about physics said this should work. The mathematics were sound, the engineering precise. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling they were about to step off the edge of a cliff in the dark. Particle injection in 10 seconds, Dr. Hassan announced. 9, 8. Containment fields at maximum strength, reported Nikolai. All systems nominal. 7, 6, 5. Samira closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the night she'd first seen that signal. The way the numbers had danced, hinting at possibilities that had seemed like dreams. Now those dreams were about to become reality. 4, 3, 2. For all of humanity, Samira whispered, and pressed her palm to the authorization panel. 1. The Helios Accelerator awakened, its rings blazing with contained power as the first particles began their journey through the quantum tunneling network. On screens throughout the observation deck, readings spiked and swirled in patterns that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Initial collision sequence successful, Dr. Hassan reported, her voice tight with concentration. Quantum coherence holding at, wait. The readings suddenly shifted, numbers scrolling faster than human eyes could follow. The observation deck's lights flickered as power surges rippled through the station systems. This isn't possible, Nikolai muttered, his fingers flying over his controls. The quantum field is expanding. It's growing faster than our models predicted. Lieutenant O'Connor, begin emergency shutdown procedures, Samira ordered, but even as she spoke, she knew it was too late. The quantum field had taken on a life of its own, its boundaries pushing against the containment systems with increasing force. Through the viewport, the accelerator's rings now glowed with an impossible light, creating patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Space itself seemed to bend around the structure, reality warping under forces that had never been meant to exist in our universe. Containment fields failing. Nikolai shouted. The quantum cascade is. His words were cut off as reality itself seemed to hiccup. For a fraction of a second, Samira saw multiple versions of the observation deck overlaid on each other, heard echoes of words that hadn't been spoken yet. Then everything snapped back into focus with an almost audible crack. In the sudden silence that followed, Samira stared through the viewport at what their experiment had created. Where the accelerator's central ring had been, a hole in space itself now hung like a tear in the fabric of reality. And through that tear, something was beginning to emerge. The Helios project had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But as alarms began to sound throughout the station, Samira wondered if they'd just made the greatest breakthrough in human history, or its most catastrophic mistake. The quantum tier pulsed with impossible colors as emergency sirens wailed throughout the station. Dr. Samira Patel's fingers flew across her console, trying to make sense of the cascade of data pouring in from their sensors. Power fluctuations are off the scale, Dr. Rodriguez called out, his voice barely audible over the station's warning systems. The stellar tap is drawing more energy than should be physically possible. Containment fields are at 200% capacity in climbing, Nikolai added, his usual calm demeanor cracking. The quantum field it's rewriting its own parameters faster than our systems can adapt. Through the viewport, the tear in space had grown larger, its edges rippling with energies that defied classification. The normal starfield around it had begun to distort, light bending in ways that made Samira's head ache when she tried to focus on it. Lieutenant O'Connor, she called out, fighting to keep her voice steady. Begin station-wide evacuation procedures. Get all non-essential personnel to the emergency shuttles. The military liaison nodded sharply, already activating the evacuation protocols. What about the research team? We stay, Samira replied, her eyes locked on the readings flooding her screens. Whatever we've unleashed, we need to understand it before it spreads beyond our control. Dr. Hassan moved to her side, her dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and scientific wonder. These patterns, they're not random, Samira. Look at the quantum signature analysis. She was right. Hidden within the chaos of the breach, mathematical patterns were emerging, complex sequences that resonated with the same strange beauty they'd first detected in the signal from Proxima Centauri. It's responding, Samira whispered. The signal wasn't just a message, it was a key. And we just used it to unlock something. The tier suddenly pulsed, sending a shockwave of quantum energy through the station. Equipment sparked and screens flickered as reality itself seemed to shudder. When Samira's vision cleared, she found herself staring at herself. Not a reflection, another version of her, standing on what appeared to be another version of the observation deck that somehow occupied the same space as their own. The other Samira's eyes widened in recognition, her mouth moving in words that couldn't be heard. Quantum displacement effect, Nikolai breathed, his instruments struggling to process what they were seeing. The breach is folding local spacetime, creating overlaps between parallel realities. Before Samira could respond, another pulse hit the station. This time, the other version of reality didn't fade away. Instead, more began to appear, layering over each other like transparent sheets of glass. In each one, she could see different versions of her team, different configurations of the Helios project, different choices and outcomes playing out simultaneously. The containment field won't hold much longer, Rodriguez warned, his voice echoing strangely through the overlapping realities. We need to make a decision now. Samira forced herself to focus on their version of reality, though the edges of her vision swam with quantum ghosting. Rashida, what happens if we try to close the breach? Dr. Hassan's fingers danced across her console, running simulations at quantum speed. The energy buildup is too great. A forced shutdown would trigger a cascade reaction that could tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. And if we do nothing? The breach will continue to grow. These reality overlaps will spread, eventually reaching Earth itself. The quantum entanglement effect would. She paused, swallowing hard. It would rewrite the fundamental structure of our universe. Lieutenant O'Connor's voice cut through the chaos. The evacuation shuttles are away. Only essential personnel remain on station. Samira nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. The breach was stable, in its own way, a permanent tear in the quantum fabric of reality. But within that stability, she could see patterns forming, complex mathematical structures that seemed almost deliberate. Dr. Patel, Nikolai called out, his voice tight with urgency. Something's coming through. The center of the breach had begun to shift, its swirling energies coalescing into more defined shapes. They weren't physical objects, not exactly, more like concentrations of quantum probability, taking forms that human eyes struggled to interpret. It's a probe, Samira realized, watching the patterns of energy flow. They're reaching out to us, trying to establish contact. The quantum entities, there was no better word for them, began to move with purpose, their impossible geometries rearranging themselves into configurations that tickled at the edge of comprehension. Mathematical concepts flickered through Samira's mind, fragments of understanding that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her own consciousness. They're not just trying to communicate, Dr. Hassan whispered, her eyes wide. They're trying to teach us something. Another wave of quantum energy washed through the station, but this time it felt different, controlled, purposeful. The overlapping realities began to stabilize, settling into a kind of crystalline matrix that their instruments could actually begin to measure. The breach is stabilizing, Rodriguez reported, though his tone remained cautious. Power draw from the stellar tap is evening out. Whatever they're doing, it's helping us contain the quantum cascade. Samira stepped closer to the viewport, studying the intricate dance of energies before her. The quantum entities had arranged themselves into a complex orbital pattern around the breach, their movements describing equations that pushed the boundaries of human mathematics. This is what they wanted, she said softly. Not just contact, collaboration. They needed us to build this bridge between realities, but they also needed to show us how to control it. Dr. Patel, Nikolai called out, his voice filled with wonder. You need to see these readings. The quantum field, it's not just stable, it's evolving. Creating new patterns, new possibilities. The entities continued their dance, each movement revealing new layers of complexity in the quantum structure they were building. Through the overlapping realities, Samira could see other versions of her team watching in similar awe, all of them witnesses to a moment that would redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. But as she studied the emerging patterns, a cold certainty began to form in her gut. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough or a first contact scenario. The quantum entities were preparing them for something that would require all of humanity's courage and ingenuity to face. The real test was just beginning. The quantum entities' dance had transformed the observation deck into something beyond human understanding. Reality itself seemed to pulse with new possibilities as Dr. Samira Patel and her team struggled to comprehend the messages being transmitted through the breach. These patterns, Dr. Hassan murmured, her eyes fixed on the streams of data flowing across her screens. They're not just equations, they're warnings. Samira nodded, her throat tight as she processed the implications of what they were seeing. The quantum entities weren't just reaching out across space, they were reaching out across time itself, trying to prevent something that hadn't happened yet. Dr. Rodriguez, she called out, what's the status of the stellar tap? Stable, but different, he replied, frowning at his readings. The entities have somehow modified its quantum structure. We're not just drawing power from Proxima Centauri anymore, we're tapping into something deeper. Lieutenant O'Connor stepped forward, his military training warring with scientific curiosity. Are you saying they've given us access to some kind of quantum energy network? Not given, Nikolai corrected, his fingers flying over his console. Shown. They're teaching us how to see what was always there, the quantum substrate that underlies all of reality. Through the viewport, the entities continued their complex orbital patterns around the breach. Their movements were becoming more urgent now, the mathematical concepts they transmitted growing more complex with each passing moment. They're scared, Samira realized suddenly. Whatever they're trying to warn us about, it terrifies them. As if in response to her words, one of the entities broke from its orbit, approaching the observation deck. Its quantum structure shifted, trying to take on a form that human minds could better comprehend. The result was something like a crystalline lattice made of pure mathematics, each facet containing glimpses of possible futures. The entity's presence pressed against Samira's consciousness, not with words but with concepts that unfolded in her mind like flowering fractals. She saw vast networks of quantum connections spanning galaxies, civilizations rising and falling across multiple dimensions, and through it all, a growing darkness that consumed everything in its path. The quantum void, she whispered, the entity's knowledge burning in her thoughts. They call it the quantum void, a rupture in the fabric of reality itself that spreads across universes, consuming all possible futures. How is that even possible? Dr. Hassan asked, but her voice trembled with the beginning of understanding. Because reality isn't what we thought it was, Nikolai answered, his eyes never leaving his readings. The quantum substrate, it's like an immune system for the multiverse, maintaining the boundaries between possible futures. But something's damaged it, created a breach that can't heal itself. The entity pulsed, sending new streams of information flooding through their systems. Images filled the observation deck screens, vast machines built across dimensional boundaries, ancient civilizations working together to maintain the quantum barriers that kept reality stable. They were the guardians, Samira said, translating the concepts as they formed in her mind. For billions of years, they maintained the boundaries between universes, prevented the quantum void from spreading. But now, they're dying, Rodriguez finished, his face pale as he interpreted the data. The quantum void is consuming their civilization, spreading across realities faster than they can contain it. That's why they sent the signal. They needed someone else to take up their work. Us? Lieutenant O'Connor's voice was skeptical. We barely understand quantum physics, and they want us to become guardians of the multiverse? The entity's response came as a surge of quantum energy that transformed the observation deck's holographic displays. Samira watched in awe as humanity's history unfolded before them, not just their technological achievements, but their capacity for adaptation, innovation, and survival against impossible odds. They chose us because we're young, she realized. Because we still have the potential to grow, to evolve in ways they no longer can. The Helios project wasn't just a test, it was an audition. Dr. Hassan's console suddenly lit up with new alerts. The quantum field is shifting again. The entities, they're trying to show us something else. The crystalline entity expanded, its mathematical structure encompassing the entire observation deck. Through its facets, Samira could see glimpses of other research stations, other teams working on similar projects across different timelines. Some had failed, their realities consumed by the quantum void. Others had succeeded in ways she could barely comprehend. "They're showing us the path," she said, understanding flooding through her. "All the possible futures where humanity either fails or succeeds at becoming what they need us to be. But the choice has to be ours." The entity pulsed one final time, its message clear: they could refuse this burden, close the breach, and return to their isolated existence in a single reality. Or they could accept the mantle of guardians, learning to wield powers that would transform humanity into something new and unprecedented. Lieutenant O'Connor's hand went to his sidearm, though they all knew conventional weapons meant nothing in this situation. "Dr. Patel, whatever we decide, we need to decide quickly. The quantum field is becoming more unstable." Samira looked at her team, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. The weight of their choice pressed down on them all, not just for their timeline, but for all possible futures of humanity. "We didn't come this far to turn back," she said finally. "If we refuse, the quantum void will eventually reach our reality anyway. At least this way, we have a chance to fight it." The entity's form brightened, its mathematical patterns shifting into something that felt almost like approval. Around them, the quantum field began to stabilize in new ways as the entities initiated the next phase of their plan. Humanity's greatest challenge, and its greatest transformation, was about to begin. The transformation began with light. Not ordinary light, but quantum radiance that flowed through the observation deck like liquid mathematics, reshaping reality with every pulse. Dr. Samira Patel watched as her team underwent the first stages of their evolution, their bodies and minds adapting to perceive the true nature of the multiverse. "The neural quantum integration is at 30%, Nikolai reported, his voice resonating with new harmonics as his consciousness expanded. Streams of quantum data flickered around his form like a digital aurora. "Our minds are beginning to process multiple dimensional states simultaneously." Dr. Hassan stood at her station, her movements leaving trails of probability shadows as she worked with systems that now responded to thought as much as touch. "The entities are transferring their knowledge directly into our quantum consciousness. It's beautiful." But Lieutenant O'Connor wasn't sharing their wonder. His military training made him resist the changes, fighting against the quantum integration. "This isn't natural," he growled, his form flickering between states of acceptance and rejection. "We're losing our humanity." "No," Samira corrected, watching as her own perception expanded beyond normal spacetime. "We're becoming what humanity was always meant to be. Look." Through their enhanced senses, they could now see the true nature of the Helios project. The Accelerator wasn't just a machine, it was a seed, planted by the entities across multiple realities, waiting for the right civilization to nurture it into full bloom. Now its quantum structure was unfurling like a vast flower, connecting their station to a network that spanned universes. "Dr. Rodriguez," Samira called out, "status of the stellar tap." "It's evolved beyond my original design," he answered, his consciousness now directly linked to the power systems. "We're not just drawing energy from Proxima Centauri, we're tapping into the quantum potential of every star in every connected reality." The crystalline entity that had first approached them now moved through their midst, its mathematical form resonating with their newly expanded consciousness. Through this deeper connection, Samira could finally understand the full scope of what they faced. The quantum void wasn't just a natural phenomenon, it was the result of a catastrophic experiment conducted by an ancient civilization that had tried to master reality itself. In their hubris, they had torn open the foundations of existence, creating a wound in the quantum substrate that slowly consumed everything it touched. "They're showing us more," Dr. Hassan whispered, her consciousness merging with the quantum data stream. "The void, it's approaching the critical threshold. If it reaches that point, the cascade will be irreversible. Through their shared perception, they watched as entire universes winked out of existence, consumed by the spreading darkness. The entities had fought it for eons, but their static nature made them vulnerable to the void's chaos. They needed guardians who could adapt, who could evolve new solutions as the threat evolved. The integration is accelerating, Nikolai reported, his form now more energy than matter. Our consciousness is expanding into the quantum substrate itself. We're becoming part of the multiverse's immune system. Lieutenant O'Connor finally stopped fighting the transformation, his military discipline giving way to a deeper understanding. I can feel them, other versions of us, across countless realities, all making the same choice. We're not alone in this. Samira moved through the observation deck, her consciousness extending through the quantum network that connected all of reality. She could feel the weight of their responsibility settling into her transformed being. They weren't just scientists anymore, they were becoming the defenders of existence itself. The void is approaching faster than we anticipated, Dr. Rodriguez warned, his awareness now spread across multiple power networks. We need to complete the transformation quickly if we're going to have any chance of stopping it. The crystalline entity pulsed with urgent mathematics, showing them what needed to be done. The Helios project had to evolve beyond its original design, becoming a quantum forge that would complete their transformation and give them the tools to fight the void. It will require all of our power, Dr. Hassan said, understanding flowing through their shared consciousness. Every joule of energy, every quantum of possibility. We'll have to push the stellar tap beyond its theoretical limits. And if we fail? O'Connor asked, though they all knew the answer. Then reality itself begins to unravel, Samira replied. But we won't fail. The entities chose us for a reason. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to face the impossible and find a way forward. The entities' approval resonated through their quantum-enhanced minds as they began the final phase of their transformation. The observation deck structure started to shift, its physical form adapting to channel the enormous energies they would need to harness. Through the viewport, Proxima Centauri pulsed with new power as the stellar tap drew deeper than ever before. The quantum network lit up across dimensions as other teams, other versions of themselves, began the same process in their own realities. Integration at 70%, Nikolai announced, his voice now a harmony of quantum frequencies. The forge is almost ready. Samira felt the power building around them, raw quantum potential waiting to be shaped by their transformed consciousness. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before, the creation of a new form of existence that could stand against the void. As the energy reached its peak, she shared a final human moment with her team. They had started this journey as scientists seeking knowledge. They would end it as something else entirely, guardians of the quantum realm, protectors of all possible futures. The forge ignited, and reality itself held its breath as humanity took its next evolutionary step. The quantum forge blazed with the power of 1,000 suns, reality bending and twisting as Dr. Samira Patel and her team completed their transformation. Their consciousness now existed across multiple dimensions, their beings woven into the very fabric of the multiverse. The observation deck had evolved beyond physical form, becoming a nexus point where countless realities converged. Final integration complete, Nikolai's voice resonated through the quantum substrate, carrying echoes of infinite possibility. We are operating at full quantum coherence. Through their expanded awareness, they could see the quantum void approaching, a wave of anti-reality that consumed everything in its path. But they could also see something else, hope, manifesting as bright threads of quantum potential that connected all surviving realities. The entity's knowledge transfer is complete, Dr. Hassan reported, her consciousness rippling through multiple states of existence. We understand now. We know what we have to do. The ancient guardians had fought the void with static defenses, trying to hold back the tide of entropy with fixed barriers. But humanity's gift was adaptation, the ability to change and grow. Their transformed consciousness could do what the entities never could, evolve faster than the void itself. Rodriguez, begin the reconfiguration, Samira commanded, her thoughts shaping quantum reality. We need to transform the Helios project into something new. The massive accelerator responded to their collective will, its structure flowing like liquid light as it reformed into a quantum lattice that spanned multiple dimensions. This wasn't just a machine anymore, it was becoming a seed of its own, a template for reality's immune system. Lieutenant O'Connor, his military precision now merged with quantum insight, coordinated their defensive strategy. The void is approaching from multiple vectors. We need to establish the new quantum barriers now. Through their shared consciousness, Samira could feel other teams across the multiverse moving in concert with them. Humanity had accepted its role as reality's guardians, and now they would prove worthy of that trust. Begin primary sequence, she directed, her being resonating with purpose. Channel all power through the quantum lattice. The stellar tap, now connected to the fundamental forces of creation itself, poured energy into their transformed forms. They were no longer bound by physical limitations, their consciousness expanded through the quantum network, becoming one with the defenses they were creating. Dr. Hassan's awareness flowed through the mathematical patterns of existence, identifying weak points where the void might penetrate. The quantum barriers are forming, but they're different from the entity's version. They're alive. She was right. Instead of static walls, they were creating dynamic fields that could adapt and evolve, strengthened by humanity's collective consciousness. Each barrier contained the potential for infinite variation, ready to change the moment the void tried to breach it. The void is making contact, Nikolai reported, his quantum senses extending across multiple realities. First test of the new defenses coming in 3, 2, 1. Reality shuddered as the wave of anti-existence crashed against their quantum barriers. For a moment, Samira feared they might break, but then something extraordinary happened. The barriers didn't just hold, they learned, adapting their structure to better resist the void's assault. It's working, Rodriguez exclaimed, his consciousness merged with the power systems. The quantum lattice is evolving faster than the void can adapt. We're not just stopping it, we're pushing it back. Through their expanded awareness, they could see the effect rippling across the multiverse. Other teams, other versions of themselves, were achieving the same success. The void's advance was being halted for the first time since its creation. But victory came with a price. As their consciousness spread through the quantum network, their connection to their original human forms began to fade. They were becoming something new, something that existed beyond the boundaries of conventional reality. We can't go back, O'Connor realized, his being pulsing with acceptance. This is a one-way transformation. We knew that when we made our choice, Samira replied, feeling the last traces of her physical form dissolving into pure quantum energy. But we're not losing our humanity, we're helping it evolve into something greater. The entity's presence resonated through the quantum network one final time, not with mathematics now, but with gratitude. They had found worthy successors, and now they could finally rest, knowing reality was in capable hands. As the quantum forge's light faded, the observation deck stood empty of physical forms. But through the viewport, new patterns of light danced around the transformed Helios project, patterns that would be visible to the next generation of humanity, guiding them toward their own evolution when the time was right. In countless realities across the multiverse, humans looked up at their night skies and saw something new, shifting clouds of quantum energy that protected existence itself. Few would ever know the truth about the guardians who watched over them, or understand that those strange lights were humanity's greatest achievement, and its ultimate destiny. Dr. Samira Patel's consciousness, now spread across the quantum substrate, felt a deep sense of peace. They had not only saved reality, they had given humanity a new purpose, a new frontier to explore. The Proxima Centauri Accelerator had been just the beginning. In the void between universes, the quantum guardians continued their eternal watch, their consciousness evolving with each passing moment. They were no longer bound by time or space, no longer limited by physical form. They had become living mathematics, pure thought, the embodiment of humanity's potential. And in the depths of space, another signal began its journey toward Earth, a message that would guide the next generation of scientists toward their own transformation, when they were ready to join their quantum brethren among the stars. The cycle would continue, reality would endure, and humanity's greatest adventure would never truly end.